It did not begin with destruction. It began with a silence that felt wrong. The kind of silence that settles before something too large to comprehend arrives when the air grows heavy. The ocean pulls back just slightly, and the sky turns into a flat, unmoving weight above the Mariana Islands, as if everything is waiting for permission to break. Then the wind came, not suddenly but steadily, building layer by layer until it no longer sounded like wind at all, but like pressure itself moving through space, wrapping around buildings, forcing its way into every gap, every weakness, every structure that had once felt permanent. By the time Super Typhoon Sinlaku reached Saipan and Tinian, it was no longer just a storm. It was a system of force. Sustained winds surged past 220 kilometers per But even that was not the most dangerous part, because wind breaks, water erases. As the eye wall approached, the pressure dropped rapidly, lifting the ocean itself. Storm surge began rising not as a wave, but as a steady, unstoppable climb, pushing seawater inland by 3 to 5 meters above normal levels, swallowing coastlines, flooding roads, and turning entire neighborhoods into extensions of the sea. In Saipan and Tinian, where communities sit close to the coast, that rise was enough. Houses were not simply damaged. They were unanchored. From a structural perspective, the failure was inevitable once surge combined with wind load. Foundations weakened from below as water forced its way inward, while above, winds tore at roofs and walls already under stress. This dual force impact uplift from below. Pressure from above is what makes Super Typhoon so devastating. Buildings do not collapse in one direction. They come apart. Entire rows of homes were lifted, shifted, and broken into fragments, carried inland or pulled outward depending on current direction. Vehicles once stationary became objects in motion, sliding, overturning, then disappearing beneath water and debris. At 1 meter of moving water, people lose balance. At 2 meters, vehicles begin to float. At 3 meters and above, structures lose their relationship with the ground entirely. That threshold was crossed. Quickly. In hours of peak intensity, visibility dropped to near zero. Rainfall exceeded 300-400 millimeters in less than a day, saturating land that was already under surge pressure, eliminating any remaining capacity for absorption. Drainage systems became irrelevant. There was no distinction between rainwater and seawater anymore. Everything became one system, one moving mass. Power failed across large sections of both islands. Communication lines dropped. Roads disappeared beneath water and debris. Emergency shelters filled rapidly as thousands sought higher ground, not because of flooding alone, but because ground itself no longer felt stable. This is what defines a super typhoon event. Not just destruction, but disorientation. From above, the islands vanished into a single-color gray water, white spray, and dark fragments moving in unpredictable patterns. From within, there was no horizon, no reference point, no sense of direction, only wind pressing from all sides and water rising from below. A total loss of orientation. Early reports indicate thousands of homes damaged or destroyed, with entire coastal zones heavily impacted. Preliminary estimates suggest tens of thousands of residents affected, with infrastructure losses likely reaching hundreds of millions of dollars, a devastating figure for island communities where recovery is slow and resources are limited. But again, numbers are not the core of the story, because what people experienced cannot be measured in statistics. They watched walls separate. They felt floors shift. They saw water where streets used to be. And in those moments, there is no analysis, only realization. Super Typhoon Sinlaku did not just hit Saipan and Tinian. It redefined them. It turned fixed ground into temporary space, turned homes into objects, turned the ocean into something that no longer stays where it belongs. And perhaps the most unsettling truth is this. The islands did not fail because they were prepared. They failed because the forces acting on them exceeded what preparation could contain. As the storm begins to move away and the winds weaken, what remains is not silence but aftermath, broken structures, flooded land, interrupted lives, and a long process of rebuilding that begins not with construction, but with understanding what was lost. Because in events like this, the damage is not just physical. It is structural, environmental, and deeply human. And the lesson it leaves behind is as clear as it is uncomfortable. When wind reaches that speed and water rises to that height, there is no resistance. Only time. And how much of it you have before everything changes.
dragged away by the current.